I mean, in the end, what's better than get someone who's a Baton Rouge native? As after the firing of James Cregg, LSU hires Arkansas O-line coach Brad Davis. And what's kind of crazy about this is the fact that, I think there's a couple of things. It's that it happened so quickly in terms of how it came together. A great job by Woodward and Ogeron and everybody else immediately acting and finding their guy after some surprising news, which, according to a Brody Miller article from The Athletic, and this is something you're hearing bandied about and echoed, it looks like the James Cregg situation had something to do with some recruiting violations. We don't know the exact details yet, but that's a pretty horrible way to get fired randomly in the middle of the summer, but it just kind of is what it is, right? LSU had to move on, and they do a very good job of immediately getting guys. So like I said, the timing was surprising how quick they pulled it off, but also in Brad Davis, Jake, you have a guy that has been highly sought after, right? Yeah. Like, I mean, USC tried to hire him. Multiple SEC schools try to hire him. He's a Sam Pittman guy through and through. And so he had stuck with Pittman throughout. But in the end, the allure of Baton Rouge and I'm not going to lie, probably the money. We'll see when the detail comes out. It proved to be too much as they were able to hire him away in one of the oddest timed hires that you will ever see covering college football.
Yeah, and we mentioned it yesterday. Ole Miss had to go to Gardner-Webb to get their replacement for Clements, who was fired after their spring had concluded. So you now are even a couple of weeks away from that, really a couple of months away from that timeline, and you're able to go get someone that other people, as you mentioned, tried to poach. And he's been at Arkansas, obviously, Mizzou, Florida. He's been within the SEC. He played at Oklahoma, won a national championship there. So his resume is highly impressive, and a lot of people, including our guy Cole Kulick I talked with yesterday, they were surprised anyone can get him away from Sam Pittman.
Yeah, that's his boy.
Sam Pittman is his boy. Sam Pittman is an offensive line coach, and you know that if you're the offensive line coach, just like if you're the defensive backs coach for Nick Saban, if you're the defensive line coach for Coach O, like you know what kind of person that is because you're not going to have a flake in there. So you go and you get someone that everybody else seemed like they wanted in the offseason. And, again, to our point yesterday, and this is why I think it happened so quickly, he knows this area. He knows Louisiana. He knows where to go and recruit already, right? Because even if you haven't been in Louisiana in a while, you know the spots. You were raised here. You know where to recruit. You know how to relate to people from Louisiana.
His first job was at Southern Lab. Out of college.
I think this is a big one. I think this is something that yesterday we were like, look, we're not going to try to spin this as a positive. But now, sitting here 24 hours later, it looks a lot better.
Yes, I think you probably objectively got better because I do believe that Brad Davis's strongest suit is recruiting. Even in the past 16 months, he's got 3 4-star linemen to sign with Arkansas, which is, it's tough to recruit football-wise to Arkansas. And he's a cat who has come up in college football, right? The majority of James Cregg experience was on the NFL level. And I think you felt that in recruiting a bit where there were some misses. Definitely some wins. There's always some wins there. But there were some key misses as well. But let's also not, I do see a bit of revisionist history going on where it's just kind of like, oh, James Cregg wasn't any good as an O-line coach. That's obviously not true, right? And not just because stuff like the Joe Moore Award, because obviously having a quarterback like Burrow plays such a factor in that. But I'm talking about, think back to like 2018, right? When you go 10-3 and you win the Fiesta Bowl, and I think, what was it? Wasn't it like the first 7 games? I think LSU had a different starting lineup every single game on their offensive line. Like, there were times when Cregg had to deal with incredibly not light numbers, just a revolving door of injuries and starters, and he still managed to cobble together a group that was serviceable, sometimes even really good. Now, last year was definitely a step back. I think for multiple reasons. I mean, also, again, quarterback has a huge effect on O-lines. If you go from Joe Burrow to true freshman, like of course, there's going to be a bit of a step back. So Cregg was good. Cregg was a good O-line coach. And like I said, it's a really kind of crappy way to go out if you're James Cregg.
It is.
But with all this talent coming down the pipeline, it is actually pretty good timing to get an expert recruiter in the mix to try to take advantage of this 2022 class.
James Cregg is an excellent X's and O's coach. I've had the chance to sit down with him. I know guys that play for him in San Diego and Denver. That part of it, he is excellent. But when you look at offensive line play, and you could speak to this more than I could, in 2021's college football, it's not even remotely close to the offensive line play as far as the X's and O's part that when you played in college football. The pass protection is completely different. There's a lot more, hey, 3-step, RPO, get the ball out of your hands, all of that type of stuff. There's no longer the under center, play action pass, 8-step drop. You got to block this guy for 10 seconds.
Something like that.
247 UConn.
Yeah, there you go.
But when you go back to in the run plays as well, T, I mean, a lot of times you're still in a 2-point stance and you're blocking a zone run.
Yeah.
Like everyone runs zone runs for a majority of their runs now. So the X's and those part, you have to know what you're talking about, but it's not as important as it is like it is in the NFL, like it used to be in college football. So you go get a guy that can do what? Well, he can do the X's and those, but he also is an elite recruiter.
Yeah, and as we said yesterday, if push came to shove and you were choosing which one you would want your best skill to be at, it would be on the recruiting side. And then if you're not a technician, which that is not to say that Davis is not. I'm not saying that at all, right? Because he's done a good job. And Arkansas did a good job of playing over their head last year. But you want recruiting first, and then you can figure out avenues to figure out the rest, right? Maybe you bring in an assistant who that's his main job is working technique, giving the guys drills in the offseason to engage in to improve their technique, watching their film with that in mind. So odd, but it may be. I'm not going to act like it's a massive upgrade, but I do think probably on balance that the majority of analysts would say that this is an upgrade for LSU at O-line. I think maybe some of the concerns would be a bit of the timing of it, right? Again, just because he has to come in, learn this offensive line, establish trust, which, a great recruiter should probably be pretty good at, get to know them, and then how he wants to best employ them, whereas Cregg had really seen these guys come up and knew them inside and out. They're going to be starting all these relationships anew. One
of the good things about him coming in as far as a recruiter, too, he has these relationships already with not only the guys that are committed to LSU, but the guys are going after as well, because almost every SEC school is recruiting the same people.
Yeah.
Right? And so he has offered a majority of the guys that have already committed to LSU. He's offered a lot of the guys that LSU's offered. So he has a book on the recruits as well.
Yeah, and what a great situation for Brad Davis to be walking into. All 5 starters back. I got to imagine he's getting paid at least $700K a year, which is what James Cregg was due to make. And the 2022 class, especially for Louisiana, is just chock full of great O-linemen, headlined by a guy that we'll talk to later in the show, our guy Will Campbell up there in Neville, who's a 5-star offensive tackle that once told us he thinks he has the most swag of any O-lineman in the country. So we'll talk to Will coming up at 9:30. I do love this quote from Davis. I was struggling to understand exactly where this quote came from, but this was from last year. It's a quote, and this is maybe why you were able to pry him away. My wife would like to go on more vacations. Vacation to me is going back to Baton Rouge or sitting out in the back. You know what I mean? With my parents drinking coffee and hanging out and talking. She wants to go somewhere with blue water and all that stuff. This is not my thing. It's pretty gritty. It's pretty blue collar right there from Brad Davis, dude. That's what I want out of my O-line coach.
Hey, he's from Louisiana. Some of you don't know that.
He just wants to sit on the porch and drink some coffee, but I ain't trying to go to all this destined and water and whatnot. All right, when we get back, we got another one of Shreveport's finest. Our guy Hunt Palmer, looking slim and trim and ready to break down this regional up in Eugene. Keep it locked right here on Off the Bench.